EBE's RPA solutions empower logistics and transportation providers to automate repetitive tasks, compensate for the competitive labor market, achieve cross-platform visibility, and gain productivity from knowledge workers. EBE's RPA solutions are called Emily. That's me. I'm an RPA expert, the evolution of EBE's proven software development. I am code, configured to your specific needs. Also, I'm a component of EBE's workflow solutions, helping customers by eliminating data entry errors, doing manual jobs 7 to 15 times faster, and freeing skilled team members to focus on their areas of expertise. I work 24/7, including holidays, providing a consistent level of quality and accuracy. Boost productivity and job satisfaction in your back office. Hire me, Emily, today.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's final session of TCA's online leadership series, powered by EBE. Thanks to EBE sponsorship, registration for the entire series was free for TCA members. In today's discussion, Streamlining Business Through RPA, we will present a live case study on how robotic process automation can be leveraged to eliminate repetitive tasks and keystrokes by as much as 95% while improving accuracy. You'll discover practical examples of how this benefits billing, accounting, and administrative functions, but also dramatically boosts employee satisfaction by allowing your team to focus on more meaningful strategic activities. My name is Elizabeth Nicholson, TCA's Director of Education, and on behalf of TCA's entire leadership team, I want to thank you for joining us. A few reminders before we get started. Should you become disconnected from today's event, you may rejoin by clicking the link provided in your registration and reminder emails. Also, a disclaimer will be posted in the chat window for today's session. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be shared with all registrants within a couple days. We want to answer your questions. Please type your questions into the Q&A or chat icon found at the bottom of your screen. We will answer questions at the end of the main presentation. Now I'm excited to introduce today's speakers, Larry Kerr, CEO of EBE Technologies, and Ned Kriegshauser, Director of IT Business Support at Hogan Services, who will do their own introductions. So welcome, gentlemen.
We'll start with, again, I'd like to thank Elizabeth and Ned for taking their time to attend this webinar today and really talk about his experiences with our RPA application and our what we call digital employee. And I also like to thank all the people attending the webinar for their time today as well. And we'll kind of get started on what we're going to show and the things that we're up to. A little bit about EBE. We were founded in 1973. We have about 30 years of document management experience, 25 years of OCR applications. And we have two different types of divisions. One's really the driver lifecycle, which focuses on safety, compliance, and the financial automation. Today's discussion will be mostly about financial automation, but the concepts what we just talked about today can also be integrated into your safety and compliance side as well. And in total, we have over 650 clients that are using some aspect of EBE software. Today, we want to talk about the challenges in the industry. Immediately, obviously, these are fairly turbulent times in the industry. There's low freight volumes, as well as the rates are somewhat impacted. Uncertainty of tariffs, increasing costs of operation, as well as litigation exposure. Some of the midterm to long-term issues are also going to include a shrinking skilled labor pool. The Department of Labor is estimating between 2024 and 2034, skilled labor pool should increase about 3.7%, and net job growth between 2025 and 2030 will be 7%. So obviously there's going to be some competition for skilled labor. And again, those individuals are going to have to be brought into transportation and other industries. So it's going to be a very competitive landscape. Other issues that arise are really expectations for shippers. As we'll talk about, and again, Ned will be very specific on some of the issues he has. Again, they're really looking for almost real-time accurate data from carriers. They want the freight visibility. And a lot of these types of demands are really equal to carrier scorecard. So many carriers are looking at what is my scorecard? How well do I have to perform to maintain the business I have? How can I grow the business with that particular shipper? So we're really looking at AI to manage that. And some of the terms we have out there are really AI, RPA, the digital workforce, and the values of these products are, they're all provide lowering costs, they improve accuracy and timeliness of data, and also allow scalability without adding to the labor force. But before we get started, I think we should talk about key definitions. Really, AI is the ability to learn and create data, which is formally required by human intelligence. RPA is the ability to integrate data and perform tasks which were formerly required by a human, often referred to as bots. So I'm sure everyone on the broadcast is familiar with the term bots, but that's really an RPA application. Whereas the digital workforce is really combining AI and RPA. So a digital workforce performs multiple tasks in a sequence to complete a business process from beginning to end, altering a human if the process cannot be completed. So we're going to alert a human if a process can't be completed by the digital workforce. And we've spoken to our clients and other clients as well. They talk about, I have a digital workforce, I have document imaging in a workflow. But really, document imaging workflow increases the speed at which a digitized document is routed and realizing efficiencies through routing speeds. So you are gaining by having document workflow, absolutely, but you're not really working by exception. You're probably still touching every document that's coming in. So you're much more efficient, but you're not really minimizing processes through that workflow process. Digital workforce capabilities, again, documents that are coming in from emails, for example. If you're getting load tenders, those documents can come into the system. They can be OCR'd. You can create a 204, things of that nature. You have mobile com documents that are coming in, so devices that are capturing documents on deliveries, things of that nature. Spreadsheets coming in can be consumed and made into 204s as well, or other processes. You're importing data from websites. Maybe you go out and you monitor a load board and you want specific loads in a particular lane. Those types of things can be automated, brought in, again, made into a 204, brought into the system. Really looking at freight mobility. Where's my freight? Is it late? Is it other issues associated to it? How do we contact the dispatcher, the customer service person, or be proactive to let them know that there's something going on. So this data that's being consumed from, again, multiple systems, this doesn't have to be the ones we've called out here, can come into a system where it's analyzed, it's going to be validated against maybe an accounting system, a dispatching system. And based on that, what I do is a settlement process where I can basically make sure the documents are all accounted for. There isn't an OS&D. We're going to then pay the carrier. We're going to also look at shipping and invoicing from a billing and settlement side, updating web portals, and accounts payable. How can we have information come in, read that information, determine, again, is this a valid invoice? Can I also apply GL coding to it? So things that are happening today that may be very manual but repetitious is really where the digital workforce can step in and help, again, improve accuracy, speed up the flow of information, and really provide a much better working environment for your teams. So on the digital workforce, if we look at the digital workforce and things it can do, what's holding back the actual adoption of this solution? So transportation providers realize that the greatest risk right now, given this market condition, is really status quo. They're trying to figure out how do we become better. But with that in mind, there are certain challenges in the industry and really roadblocks, if you will, to deploying a digital workforce. A lot of companies are really working at not having the success of implementing automation, given their lack of experience. Again, a lot of times this type of deployment is going to be the first outing, so to speak, for a company. And they're not really sure they have the team members in order to have the expertise to roll this out and be successful. Understanding an ROI on the investment and allocating needed tech capital. Again, if the ROI is very compelling, but if I have a person performing a job, they're going to be doing less of that job, where are we going to reallocate that person? How do we justify the expense of a ROI, or excuse me, of an AI system but then how do we also account for the existing labor force that I have, and how do we make that ROI actually turn into an ROI? And also a cultural split. A lot of people are looking at the human workforce and deciding, how do we work in conjunction with the digital workforce? How do we change our culture to, again, work side by side with a bot, with a human counterpart? And speaking of a lot of companies, are also thinking, AI is really going to infringe upon my relationships with my shippers and my partners, because I'm going to be taking what Larry does on a daily basis and talks to these people, so on and so forth, and that's going to be replaced. So again, there's a cultural change both on just the relationship side of the business. And then speaking with mid-market and smaller providers, again, they're even more ingrained in the relationship aspect of their business. And that's really precluding a lot of the mid-size carriers and non-asset providers to really embrace the digital environment. So if we look at, again, how do I start by looking at best practice to deploy a digital workforce, there's really some things that one should think about as they get started, and what processes make sense to automate, and how do I work with my human workforce to prepare them for the digital environment. Essentially, the DIY does not fit in the rolling out of a digital workforce. Many times you need to have a resource that can have a background in deploying AI, and having a person internally who doesn't totally understand the applications or the integrations. How are they actually going to implement this and provide an ROI and determine whether or not it's been a successful application? So in this scenario, we really look at looking at someone that has a background in providing this type of implementation for the transportation industries. I read an article that I thought was very interesting, and talking with employees on how to bring on a AI-based application. And the speaker talked about, asking the question to your team members, is anybody using a washing machine or a dishwasher? If they say, yes, we are, the question is, why are you doing that? What are you using these items for? And a lot of times they'll say, it's the convenience. It gets things done on time. I can start it and walk away. It gets done. It does a better job than I do. And I have other things to do because I'm very busy. So that's kind of a way to break the ice and say, well, we're doing the same thing with the digital workforce here in our department. So just think of this as an opportunity to bring some things in. They're going to make you more efficient and, again, make your job better, just like the appliances you may be using at home. And the other opportunity here is finding the easy win. In today's freight market, a lot of carriers either reduce staffing through staff reductions or not replacing individuals after they've lost those types of turnover. And the opportunity here is to target areas that their team members would find to be most mundane and what they'd really like to hand off to a digital worker. In many cases, those opportunities are really the data entry side of the business. As I mentioned earlier, we want to look at people and say, we've had the success, we did this data entry project or whatever your initial project was. Now, again, the opportunity here is to reinforce the fact to your team that this is not going to replace you. This is an opportunity to improve what you're doing, and we need a human workforce in order to again, provide your talents to things that the electronic workforce can't do. We want your communication skills, and we need empathy for a given situation. And we want you to be on the phone with the customer, managing the customer relationships and things of that nature. And then by deploying the repetitive aspects of the digital workforce is going to give your team more time to work with the customers and shippers and partners within the industry. So once again, you have this initial success, you want to look at what's the opportunity to take something from beginning to end. So now you're really going to look at a digital workforce, saying we're going to take the AI piece of this where we're learning things. Then we want the RPA piece where we're going to take that information that was learned. How do we execute based on the content of that particular transaction? And how can I now really automate from beginning to end and just bring people in when there's a failure in the process? Opportunities for really a digital workforce and the invoicing and driver settlement. again, many times this is a repetitive process. You have to be in front of a specific TMS system. There's a lot to learn in order to do that. Using a digital workforce, a lot of this stuff is done through integrations. And again, looking at what's on the document, what's in the TMS system, is it all matched? In that case, again, go ahead and close and bill it. We have clients that are processing their transactions for billing and settlement. In some cases, they're getting 90% of their transactions are managed through a digital environment, and they've been reducing data entry keystrokes by about 97%. So those types of case studies are out there. These are the types of impact you can have on an organization. We also talked about carrier invoicing, carrier settlement, notifying drivers of late and missing paperwork, GL coding on the AP side of the business, checking EDI payment statuses to make sure that everything's been set for payment. We also want to create corrective actions for drivers. So if you're looking at the telematics data, maybe there's an aspect of a driver you want to call out, have them sign a document, schedule them up for training. These are the things that, again, from a safety side, you can apply the applications to. And then also special delivery instructions. Are there things that are happening out there that you need to tell a driver from a safety perspective? So let's take a look at what we're talking about here in the aspects of, again, the AI piece, the RPA, and then the actual processing of the data through a web portal. If you notice this particular application, we're doing OCR here, and that's AI-based OCR, which allows documents to become into the system. And just think of this as a team member, but it's AI. So it understands that this information is coming in, and okay, I understand that this is an invoice. So if you notice on the left, there's a lot of information that's been extracted. And through this process, again, the more it processes, the more it learns. So kind of the rule of thumb here is called perfection through repetition. So as all these documents keep coming in, it gets smarter and smarter. If you notice on the left there, nothing's in yellow, which tells us it doesn't understand a document, or the data isn't 100% confident that it read it properly. So in this scenario, this document wouldn't even be seen by a person because the AI has actually extracted everything, and it's 100% confident that it worked properly. Same thing here. The document came in. It says, based on this information, I need to get the PO number, the amount, things of that nature, and it would be processed automatically as well. And in this case, again, here's another document that came in from a shipper. So we need to get the information as seen on the left-hand side. And then in this case, if there's any signatures, things of that nature, we want to read if there are any OS&D claims on the document. So all that information then is programmed into this application, and it recognizes the documents just as a person would, and it processes them just as a person would. Again, in this case, I believe there's 700 keystrokes in this application, and we actually only had to perform 2 verifications. So on the left-hand side here, there's information that's yellow, which just tells us I'm not 100% confident that this is correct. But if it's correct, you just press tab and move on to the next one. And again, there's some other information available here. So once it's corrected, you move on. And this system essentially is providing that data entry function for us. And this happens to be a document that manages fuel delivery. But the idea here is to say, again, this is a new document. We can tell it what's important on this document, and it automatically extracts it. So in this case, it's getting fuel information, quantities, and so forth. And it also looks at what the grade is, for example. And in this scenario, it can be anything else. It can be any type of commodity code or information you have. It can translate that into the TMS language, saying, I know that this is a optional grade, but that equals this in the TMS system. So now the document information is being translated into TMS information. So be it a stop code or what have you, is automatically then converted. So that in front of a TMS or an accounting system is eliminated through translations. So in this scenario, we've gathered the information, we've understood, we have data. Again, the AI piece has done its work. Now we're like, how do I take this information we have through the OCR engine, and how do I execute transactions? So in this case, a document came in from a carrier settlement application that wants to know, is this a duplicate? Have I seen this before from this particular carrier? If yes, then again, why is it we think it is a duplicate? So it has somebody look at it. So the items here that are geared are really the digital workforce working. and the orange document with a person, that's when we escalate that, saying, this particular transaction is something you need to look at. But all the other wheels, if you can notice here, these are things that are being accomplished by the digital workforce, taking the data that was acquired by the AI engine, and again, looking at the dispatching or accounting system and going through the same process a person would do. But we're doing it automatically and just bringing people into the loop when, again, some type of item happens that our application is not 100% sure they can manage, and I need to give this to a person for, again, their skills. Okay, so that really kind of shows you what's happening in a carrier settlement environment. We can also look at what's happening in a delivery of a fuel document. In this application, it all comes in. We're looking at dipstick readings, gross volumes, things of that nature. So in any case where there's a variance, the paper is the system of record. So if they delivered 7,000 gallons of something and dispatching said 6,500, we would update that information. So rather than having a person do that data entry, it's being done by our bots. Then at the end of the process, we determine, is everything available here? Can we actually bill and settle this? Again, through integrations, we can go through the process of actually closing the load, billing and settling automatically. Again, when there's an issue where we can't handle it through our systems, it basically is given off to that person. A scenario here is we had a client who is in the fuel business. They went from about 6.5 hours a day of billing, and that's down to 45 minutes. And they've also improved the accuracy of their bills. Their cash flows improved because they're not waiting 30 days to go into collection mode to find out that they made an error. It's all being done more correctly up front. So from a cash flow and customer relation perspective, it's had a huge impact for them. What we'd like to do now is kind of show you the other piece of this. So let's say, for example, you're working with a shipper and you've got to go out to their website and update some information. So be it arrival, depart, doing the billing information or uploading documents. So this is a Passport application, and we've slowed this down so you can see what we're doing. But again, back in the day, from an invoicing perspective, is either you faxed something, you emailed something, or it was an EDI. So now with all these web portals that are being brought into play through intermediaries and so forth, now the next step is really managing the web portals as well. So we'll walk through this process, and here what we're doing is logging in, and in some cases we're just replicating keystrokes. In some cases there's APIs that we can use. That is more of a direct link, but we're going in this scenario and uploading documents that are required from a billing function. So we're looking into the order number, what documents needed by document type, extracting that from the imaging system, and then putting it into the website. And we're also confirming what's the payment amount. Again, we want to bill $1,000. They want to pay $700. We bring that into workflow and have a person look at that and understand what's the variance between what we want to bill and what the shipper is wanting to pay us. So again, these are all applications that are independent of document management systems. So in many cases, EBE has a document management system, but we've integrated into other systems on the market as well. So this application layer can really be applied to existing environments, and you really don't have to rip and replace what you're using today to get some of these efficiencies in the back office. Okay. With that, I'd like to introduce Ned, and Ned can kind of walk through some of the things that he's experienced with RPA and the digital workforce as well.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. I'm Ned Kriegshauser, and I've been working with Hogan Services for over 35 years now. We're a family-owned transportation company, so I have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. And my current position is Director of IT Business Support, and where this comes into play with everything that Larry's speaking about today, too. Part of my team's responsibilities is to search out solutions that may help the business perform more efficiently. And those solutions, obviously, from a technology standpoint, is where my focus is. And we've been doing business with Larry and EBE for a little over 20 years now. So obviously, I have a lot of experience with their company. But we deal with a lot of other applications outside of EBE, and the little plug for EBE. The best part of the process that we've had with EBE so far has been their ability to integrate with all of our many applications that we use. And I'm sure that for everybody on this call probably deal with those many applications the same way we do, and the ability for those applications to interact with each other seamlessly and to have the support that we need to make sure that happens is very important. And Larry had pointed out several different areas that we deal with today, and some real life examples of what we are doing today that coincide with what Larry has brought to everybody's attention is a few of them that I'm going to address here at this point. And that is, most of these are not meant to replace necessarily people that we have in positions, but in the challenging market that Larry has mentioned already for the transportation industry, at this point, we are just at the point in our organization that when people are moving around and maybe even left the organization, we're not in a position right now where we feel like with this current market that we want to replace people. So the IT area, we haven't, with the reduction in business necessarily, we haven't seen a reduction in the wants from the business for IT, because they now need to do more with less. And that's really our focus area right now, is to find solutions like the ones that Larry has pointed out, to do more with less. And a couple of those that have come to mind right away, and I have a whole list of them, a couple of them that come to mind right away is what Larry mentioned in his talk, is the website automation. We're experiencing a lot of our customers that even used to use EDI for us to send their invoices and 204 tender updates and 211 updates, things of that nature through EDI. A lot of them have now switched to a portal environment where they expect the carrier to update their portals, and with information, load status information, which then generates the payment. So we reached out to EBE and said, hey, what can we do in this area? And the EBE team came to us and said, okay, yeah, we already have a solution for that. We can, we'll integrate with your TMS system and then populate these portals in the areas that you need to have them populated, so your team is not now reaching out and having to do extra work that they didn't have to do before to populate the right area within these portals with the delivery information that in turn then automatically generates payment. And in addition to that, we've taken it a step further with the collection piece that Larry talked about. And this is where we've reached huge gains, is that they populate the portals for us with the information of the invoices that we've already billed. So these collection portals, and he mentioned even the CAS portal as an example, where we reach out and we populate that portal with several invoices that we show at this point are not paid yet. And these might be invoices that we have only invoiced a few days ago, and that it returns to us the status on those invoices. And hopefully you return the status that, hey, these invoices are now scheduled to pay, say, 30 days from now. So that way it allows us to be proactive, to say, okay, if there is a problem with this invoice, we will know right away, as opposed to before this process was put into play, we had many collectors that had to reach out to these portals and type in the invoice numbers just to get the status on them. And usually that we only did that after they were 30 days past due. So at that point, now your days service, your DSOs for these invoices are now possibly 60 days if you've just fixed it at 30 days when you noticed it was past due, as opposed to our DSOs have been greatly reduced, because now we're, as Larry mentioned before, we're catching those problems with any sort of maybe even an EDI transmission that didn't go through, or a portal update that didn't happen. We're catching those immediately, say 3 to 5 days in some cases, right after we've invoiced it. So that way our days service outstanding, and some customers have been a dramatic decrease in those days. And in turn, also with those, we've seen that we are having the ability to have our team members, our collection team members, then now be a little bit more proactive and spend their time with new customers to make sure that our new customers are now set up properly. So instead of spending all their time with trying to collect on past due invoices, now we're able to have them reach out to new customers or new business or new lanes that we might just have started to bill, and we have them spend their time saying, okay, are these new lanes set up properly? Is our customer happy with our invoice process? Does this invoice look right? So we've been able to shift gears there and be much more proactive with their job duties, with, as Larry mentioned, that customer relationship aspect, and the customer right away is saying, okay, well, hey, no, you just sent us our first invoices for these lanes, but the rate is wrong, or maybe it doesn't include all the information that's needed. Maybe it's a breakthrough fuel customer, which I know a lot of people on this call probably are familiar with. Maybe that's not set up properly, or the fuel surcharge, any sort of information that might not be set up. Now our team has been able to spend time with that. So that's been a huge, huge gain. And that's another piece that I want to focus in on, that I imagine many people on this call have to deal with like we do, is we have a lot of customers that give us tenders manually. Their processes have never changed over the last many years, and they send to us, they might send us a spreadsheet tender or manual email tenders, things of that nature. And the engine that EBE has supplied for us has allowed us to take those tenders and then to transform those into EDI 204 tenders for our TMS system. Now, that's been a huge breakthrough for us because we have so many customers that wanted to do this, to continue doing the things that they've done it the same way forever. And then now we're getting those 204 tenders into our system, and they're set up perfectly. So not only is it allowing our team members to spend time again on customer relationships and driver relationships, it also is reducing errors greatly, because before we had these tenders coming in, and then now our team members are taking those tenders and manually typing them into the system with expected delivery times, expected delivery dates, and all this information that's in there. And they might even choose the wrong customer that is supposed to be delivered to. Then you can see down the road how many challenges that would create. So now these are our exceptions are greatly reduced with the information that is coming into our system and is being converted into EDI tenders. So that's been a huge piece of it. And our business, the way that we work, we have a lot of dedicated operations. So a lot of these teams are on location working with our customers, and they're doing A to Z for these customers. They're doing everything from the load tender to the invoicing to the collections to the driver relationships. They're doing the whole ball of wax because they treat it like their own little business in these dedicated operations. So if you can have reduced the amount of manual work that they have to do, then you can see how the customer relationships would improve dramatically, and your ability to be proactive, and then your ability to then use some sort of data analytics tools and to analyze your daily reports and your KPIs that come through, and you can use those on a daily basis as opposed to maybe even looking at those monthly, because now you're not spending so much time manually entering information into your systems. And it also allows you to greatly improve your process of having, when new employees come into your business, say, hey, we don't have to teach you step by step how to do these things. All your step-by-step processes are taken care of for the most part. We only have to teach you how to deal with exceptions. So Larry, I'm going to direct this a little bit at you. If you'd like me to cover some of the workflow options that you've given to us, I can cover some of those as well at this point.
Okay, why don't we do that, and then we'll open up for questions right after our next slide.
Okay, so the workflow pieces that Larry kind of mentioned before, it allows us to do a lot more exceptions processing, because we also use some of the document imaging features that Larry pointed out, where we have load tenders that come in from our customers, and we also have a lot of invoicing that comes through. So the integration with our system makes the workflow work to where it backfills the data from each one of these invoices that comes in. And what it allows us to do, along with the bill of lading, saying, hey, like Larry pointed out, we've seen this before. It's already in the system. This is just a duplicate. This might be a balance due, or this might be some sort of just a statement that you don't want your team to look through this whole stack. Now our team is with the workflow processes that we're only looking at the customers that maybe require paperwork for those bill of ladings. We're only looking at those. All the customers that do not require paperwork, they go immediately, those documents go to complete, and we're now not looking through that entire stack, or those invoices that have already been paid. In the same way, they will go to completed, and we will not have to look at those. And then they immediately get routed to the person that might need to handle it for, as Larry pointed out, for true exceptions processing. And that has been a great reduction in the amount of time that's spent for our team going through tremendous amounts of paperwork that 3/4 of it to 90% of it were ones that they didn't even need to look at in the first place.
Great. And thanks. And we'll go ahead and have one more slide, and we'll open up for questions. So in conclusion, people are the key to most businesses, relationships. Transportation is a relationship industry as well. A business will have to compete to attract the quality team members as the pool of skilled labor becomes smaller and smaller. You're going to have to, again, have benefits and the processes that want to bring someone in to, again, work with your organization. Really, the digital workforce is going to be able to fill the gaps for skilled workers that you may be seeking, and then also with again, improving the workforce capability is really hopefully going to allow you to, again, to maintain those, because they're really focused on the things that they've done. Again, an accountant wants to do accounting work. They don't want to do data entry into websites, things of that nature. So as we mentioned earlier, the relationships are key. And if you're, again, to Ned's point earlier, if you can get the mundane tasks out of the way, you're going to allow your team members to be, again, doing the things they want to do, be it an accountant or other skill sets that they may have. And it's going to allow you to get more time to work with your customer, strengthen the relationship further. So with that, then, do we have any questions that we had seen from our?
Hi. Yes, thank you again. That was very interesting. We do have a few questions here. The first one is for Ned, and I'm actually going to kind of join two of these questions together. Can you tell us about your human workforce perception and what's changed for your team's day-to-day after the go live?
The human perception has been mixed in some cases. I think a change management process is important, because I think it's obvious to understand that when you bring a process in like this, that people definitely feel threatened and by their positions potentially being eliminated. And I think that going into our change management process, we had already identified what we feel like we want these people to spend time on before we even introduce this to them. So when we went into these to these individuals and these team members that their jobs are going to be affected directly by this, we already had a plan in place. And having that type of a change management process was dramatic for these people, because some of these people have been doing the same thing for many years, and they're tired of it and they're ready to move on. So when you're able to introduce to them, hey, you were doing this, and now this is going to be handled for you, and we're going to now have you do this, and to be able to show the true value of what you're going to be doing now was huge. And so again, I think the change management process and having it identified beforehand to present to the team members what they're going to be doing, what you hope they're going to be doing, was key.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed, Larry, the analogy that you gave with the washing machine. I don't think I've ever heard it described that way, and I actually had like an aha moment. So I appreciated that.
Change management, people are already using RPA, maybe physical for dishwashing and clothes washing, but if you think about it, it's a automated process, and it does resonate to people saying, okay, yes, I'm using this now. Hopefully this is going to be something that I can get more meaningful time at work to do as well. When I read that, I thought it was again an aha moment as well. I thought it was a great analogy.
Yeah, and in that same analogy too, the going further onto that too with the team members, everybody has heard of AI solutions and robotic solutions. So when you bring these solutions to team members who've been doing something manual forever, they're like, wow, I thank you for thinking of me, right? And thank you for thinking of this process and trying to improve my process on a daily basis. They've been very thankful as far as that, hey, you're really considering my process and what I'm doing every day and trying to improve and help me improve on and give me the tools to do that.
Oh,
just
yeah,
like
absolutely.
just like giving somebody a new washing machine, they're happy, right?
Right. Okay, the next question actually is again for Ned. What KPIs helped you or help you identify that this program and that all this process is successful?
The two first KPIs that we looked at that helped us right away was, and I think I mentioned this also, was the DSO, or Days Service Outstanding for Invoices. We were able to look at that on an account by account basis where we put these robotic solutions into play. And that's an easy metric to measure. You say, okay, what's my Days Service Outstanding today on my invoices? And then after you put it into play, you wait, give yourself, 3 or 4 months and then look at your DSO. And then that's an easy one. And the other one was our past due percentage. We watch closely our past due percentages on invoices, and to see our past due percentage directly affected by some of these robotic solutions was huge. And I think that those were key. And the last piece was our ability to how quickly can we actually invoice a customer. So if these for instance, these bill of ladings coming into these solutions and going through the workflow and being automated through the workflow all the way through to the billing process also allowed us to decrease the amount of time between the delivery of the load to actually invoicing the load. And this is not only on a small transactional invoice basis, it's also on if you deal with dedicated customers where you're billing an entire week's worth of activity at one time, you still have to have those same transactional things completed. And if they're all completed on time, then hopefully the activity you've billed or you've had this week, you can bill early next week.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious, do you share those KPIs with your entire workforce to show the positive and the benefits for implementing the RPA?
Absolutely. We have incentive programs to where we share those KPIs with our team, for sure.
And have you seen better acceptance?
Yes, especially when we have then been able to give them real tools to decrease those numbers. So then they see their incentive program in play right away, because they say, okay, they sometimes get frustrated saying, okay, I'm doing everything I can. And now we've given them tools to help them out and say, wow, okay, this is a new washing machine that's going to help me not only to my day-to-day job, but it's going to help me improve my numbers. And again, I think I mentioned this before, a lot of our teams work in very small business segments, so they're able to improve their numbers dramatically and quickly.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ned. Larry, we have one last question here. What's, in your opinion, what's the fastest and safest place to start with RPA and a digital workforce?
Again, I lean towards data entry. It's again, as we talked about, it's expensive. It's all labor for the most part. It's slow, and sometimes it's inaccurate. So if you can go to a web portal, start with a web portal update or something of that nature where you're eliminating the data entry, it's a very quick gain. And as we talked about, being accurate to the shippers is very, very in the spotlight now as well. So it's going to improve, again, your ability to work with the customer. It's going to take away that labor. And it's something that you can just say, okay, it's working on this simple process. How do we take something from the beginning to the end and put a true digital employee in place where, again, that whole process can be automated and work by exception. So I really think data entry is the place to start.
And if I could add to that super quick, Larry, is that you would look at some of those customers that might supply scorecards too, because if you're judged on accuracy, then you want to look at those first and say, okay, where can I improve my accuracy tremendously by having these robotics solutions in place?
Yeah, good point, Ned.
Okay, well, we don't have any other questions. Larry, did you want to wrap this up for us?
I'd like to take a moment to say we enjoyed sponsoring this series this year, and I hope the TCA membership has been able to gain some education from these series. And again, we appreciate your support in the marketplace.
Well, we appreciate you and EBE. Ned, Larry, thank you very much for a very informative webinar, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.